Naluan inaluan iana yaon nasilu yuvalu madayaan ay nalu iana yaon Naluan inaluan iana yaon nasilu yuvalu madayaan ay nalu iana yaon ay nalu iana yaon.
Java Javai, and welcome to In Taiwan We Speak, your audio guide to Taiwan's mind-blowing linguistic diversity. I am Alexander Shin, and today we speak Paiwan, the language of the Paiwan people, the second largest indigenous nation of Taiwan, whose homelands span mountainous areas of the island's southeast. I am joined today via video call by Eleng Kazangiljan, a Paiwan activist and scholar from the southern Taiwanese county of Pingtung, who is currently pursuing a doctorate degree in judicial science at the University of Arizona. Eleng, it's a real pleasure to connect with you.
Hello, nice to meet you, Oleg.
Now, we are connecting via online software that we use here at RTI. The audio might be not as good as we usually have it with our studio interviews, but I'm sure our listeners would understand, as we really wanted to connect with you and talk about issues that matter to the Paiwan community.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor to be on your show. Java Java Amapula ti Eleng Kazangiljan asi julukuai kituruturuan imaza I Amerika. Masalu Aravats. My name is Eleng Kazangiljan. I'm from a community called Uruguay. I now study in America, in Arizona. Major in law in my doctoral degree. It's nice to meet you all.
Now, that mesmerizing song that you gifted us with in the beginning of the episode, tell us please, what was that song about?
Yeah, it's an ancient melody where you can fill in any lyrics that you want. The version I just sang is just, it doesn't have actual meanings of these words, but it communicates the sense of feeling of wanting and missing someone or missing home.
We know you're from Pingtung. Could you please guide us through your hometown, your homeland, and the greater Paiwan homeland, as to say, as you remember it?
My community is not ordinary community. If you want to look for very so-called authentic or traditional indigenous community that you feel like exotic, no, we are a village of a lot of people from different community being relocated to Uruguay nowadays. It's called Zhuken in Chinese. It's adjacent to the ocean, and the back of the village is the beautiful mountain. So we're sitting on the mountain and looking forward to the sea. So our combination of in our village, there are people from Magazaya and from Tanavakong, all kinds of village in the northern Paiwan area. So some part of these villagers were relocated in Japanese colonial period to the village nowadays. So it's quite new compared to the other ancient indigenous communities. So yeah, we don't have the traditional festival or ceremony, but we do have this sense of awareness of tracing the roots back to the original villages and doing some roots tracing in our youth association in our community nowadays. So it's like all coming together, like to embrace the diversity and the difference of Juruguay community. This is my village, and a lot of people hunt and farm. People like my big cousin, he is a good fisherman. He could dive and use fishing spear to shoot a fish. So he's very talented, and also he can hunt. So it's like mountain and the sea where he can travel. So I think this is a big gist of my village is like.
You've previously spent years living in Hawaii, a place whose native people share roots with the indigenous people of Taiwan. What are some commonalities between the Hawaiians and Paiwan people that you have noticed?
I wouldn't say I spent a lot of years. I just only, it's about 1 year program when I studied in University of Hawaii. But the one thing I learned is it was a big culture shock for me because I was looking to connect to my cultural cousin and this lineage, and we can like share and those commonality together. But I encountered some culture shock that not so many Pacific Islanders consider Taiwan as one of the Pacific Islands. The history and colonial backgrounds are so different. It's hard for them to connect or relate to our situation here because we're more close to the development in Asia, especially Eastern Asia, like Korea and Japan. That is quite understandable. So after I adjusted that, I realized you have to learn what their culture is before like just saying, hey, we're all like Austronesian language speakers. How about that? Your brother and sister, and starting to do the counting. Like, when they do the indigenous language, like comparison and stuff. So I learned to bow to the culture and learn from the Aina, which means lands in Hawaiian language. So that after taking the classes, I start to understand that we do have some common challenge, like the language of self-determination and all this not colonial, maybe. For them, maybe it's more like because they're a country that was illegal annexed to America, so they feel different from us. The sense of like they're still a kingdom. There was a kingdom. That there is still a kingdom, and they have their own laws and government and troops and everything, military. So it's very different structure than typical indigenous people, like everybody think. So it breaks the framework, or like, let me think, it breaks the box, like how to determine what indigenous peoples are. So it's a really good experience to rethink what indigeneity is. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think we do have some commonality in our languages. Also, we have very similar social structure. We have our traditional leaders. We call them Kazangiljan. It's really similar that we put our trust to our traditional leaders when they're managing our land. So the people we think maybe they don't understand the traditional or indigenous concept of this property. Give the traditional leader the control and management of our land. for the outsider, they may think, oh my God, it's just very feudal. Like the sovereign owned the land and they control the land by those governmentalities and stuff. But for Paiwan, it's not like that. It's very horizontal, not vertical. By horizontal, it means people are connected by genealogy, by family. My name is Kazangiljan. That means I am from the house named Kazangiljan because we believe the house has a spirit. So that name gives you the responsibility. In Hawaii, it's called kuleana. Your responsibility and your privilege. You don't just have the privilege, you also have the responsibility in the same spirit in that regarding to the land management. And it's also crucial for that we're later, maybe we'll touch upon that environmental justice, how we manage the land, how we manage the disaster afterwards, how we rebuild this community in a sense of like the whole like holistic society. And so I think the same spirit we share is our knowledge to the land is not just like a property that you own, but it's something you're taken care of, you coexist, and like this mutual respect. So I love this saying that aloha aina means aloha is love, is hello, because we love this island, aloha aina. So this land, our love is transcended and transferred by the land, our common love for land. That's something I think we Paiwan people share with. So I think that is my takeaway from my short staying in Hawaii. So for the future, I hope I can come back to Hawaii and learn more from the local communities, from the land. And yeah, that's the short version of my takeaways.
And I'm really curious if based on these similarities in your people's relation to land, did you feel like it was easier for you to connect with native Hawaiian people?
I think it's easier to understand why and how they manage this land like that. And it's easier to understand the public trust doctrine prescribed in their state constitution. That means I give the power of control and management to the government. I put them in trust, put you in trust. So you have to do what is best for us as right holders. So that's similar to our understanding to our traditional leader, Mama Zangilan. Mama Zangilan, they can distribute the natural resource for the best interest to their people. And people do their, just do their own work. And individuals have different job and obligations. So my mom said because traditional leaders, our Mama Zangilan has huge responsibility to raise this whole community, consuming work. We have to raise them and keep them well fed. We provide resources to the traditional leader, and they can redistribute to the people in need. It's very similar to the concept of the native Hawaiian people who call themselves Kanaka Maori.
Now, because we are a podcast about languages originally, although we do cover very important issues like human rights and language revitalization and culture and policy, I do have to ask you now that we brought up Hawaiian language, how similar do you feel it is to Paiwan?
We have this website. It's called Laulima. And Laulima means like working, like labor work in native Hawaiian language. So we have a similar word. It's called Purima. So those people with like very talented skill for art crafting. So I think it should be something very interesting. They're Polynesian, and there's a thesis saying that people from Taiwan, they first migrate to Polynesian and then migrate to other Pacific islands. So Polynesian is the closest language group to Paiwan and other indigenous peoples in Taiwan.
And finally, as a fellow resident in a foreign land, I have to ask you, do you also experience homesickness sometimes?
Of course. Aside from my family and friends, the most thing I miss is food. I really miss jinavu and all this traditional food that connect me to my culture. But sadly, we cannot ship them to America. So whenever I'm back to Taiwan, I have this craving. So I just enjoy the most of it as I can when I'm in Taiwan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, some of our listeners might know about Chinabu, but some might not. It's a sort of millet-filled bamboo leaves, right?
Yeah, it's a content with millet. It's have different flavors. So dry taro and pork, yeah, we usually put them together and wrap with leaf, and then it's just a wrap. It's not totally like rice dumplings because the shapes is different. So yeah, it's kind of like finger food for us. It's a daily food for us, not for traditional rituals.
I liked it last time I tried because in Ukraine we also eat millet a lot.
Oh, wow.
Parents would always say, you should eat more of it because it's so healthy. But kids don't like to eat staple food usually. They want something special.
Yeah, we're more into trash food until we miss the traditional real food.
Well, with that, we've run towards the end of our airtime for today. But of course, we do not end our chat with Eleng here. So, dear listeners, join us next week as we continue our conversation about Paiwan and issues that matter to its speaking community. Thank you, Eleng, and thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Oleg, and see you next week.